Hello, everyone. It is Monica Wisdom of Black Women Amplified and the Black Women Amplified podcast. I am so excited to be back with you today. Listen, we have a power pack conversation about podcasting, but first, I want to catch up with you. I am at the end of season 3 of the Black Women Amplified podcast. If you have listened to the podcast and you've been following us in season 1, thank you so much for your support. If you are new to the podcast, hello and welcome. Our interview coming out this week is with Ishi Robinson. She is a Jamaican born writer who lives in Berlin, and she is a debut author with her first book, Sweetness in the Skin. And her book is a coming of age book about a young girl blooming into teenage years. And she's resourceful, um, brilliant, and very, very entrepreneurial in how she deals with her life. And she's on a mission to get to France, from Jamaica to Paris. And the way that she gets there and how she navigates the obstacles of life is really, really great. I didn't think I would relate to a book about a 13-year-old girl, but I actually did. It took me back to my teenage years, and you know how we were and how we are as teenagers. And if you have teenagers, you know how they are, just trying to navigate through life. And so this is a very wonderful story. And she was just so incredible to interview. It was my first international interview, which I'm very excited about. I have a potential one with someone in London coming this summer. So we'll see what happens. But she was fun and engaging, very forthright in her answers, very authentic, very vulnerable. And I got to learn a lot about her. And I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. It drops tomorrow, Thursday at 8 a.m., as all of our podcast episodes are dropped on Thursday, early Thursday morning, so that you can listen to it during lunch hour, on your way home from work, if you're taking a break, and take you through the weekend to the following week. But today I want to talk about podcasting. A lot of people ask me, how do you start your podcast? What do I do? What is it all? What is podcasting all about? So let's have that conversation. Um, you see that there are many different podcasts, and like, what's the difference between a show and a podcast? Podcast typically started out with um, iPods. When they created an iPod, typically an iPod, a podcast is just an audio file, an MP3 to be specific, or a WAV file. There's several different files, but an MP3 file. And when the podcast came out, they called it a podcast because you could listen to a talk show or whatever via your iPod. When it first came out, I think in 2005, I don't remember. I think it's about 15 years old. But that's essentially where it started. It was being able to take your music, conversations, all the things in your pocket via your iPod. And when it started, it was typically just a few people, industry leaders, or just people who wanted to have conversations. And it definitely wasn't people that looked like me in the podcast arena. And it has been dominated still by people who don't look like me. And for some reason, we typically, especially Black women, women, um, women of color, don't typically get into the podcast world. And it is really a wonderful medium to get our voices out into the world, especially as marginalized people. Most people run to write a book or they want to do a television show, and all of those are absolutely great. But this is podcasting is the perfect companion, especially if you're a new author and you want to build a community, if you're creative, if you're a business person. I mean, how many times have you sat on YouTube and learned about something? You could do the same thing with a podcast. There's so many different things. You can read your books on podcast, read first chapters, read books that you love. My favorite, Geordi from Star Trek, LeVar Burton, has a podcast where he simply reads books. You know, so there's so many different options. There's a podcast just won a Pulitzer Prize, and it's a true crime podcast. And so there are many landscapes and things that you create. I typically work with women in business or creatives who want to start their own podcast. And so I walk them through the beginning process, creating the idea and things like that. So, and that's why I have a podcast workshop called "Is This Mic On?" And "Is This Mic On?" is takes you through all the basics that you need to start a podcast, but like the real piece of it when adding it to your business, not just what mic are you going to pick out or what to record on or how to upload it. Those are the basics you can learn right here on YouTube. But when it comes to really amplifying your business, amplifying your voice, finding your mood, finding your tone, finding your vibe, that's what I teach. But today I want to talk to you about 5 reasons to even start a podcast, because I think it's very important. And you can even, read podcasts if you have a favorite television show, like Queen Charlotte had a podcast. Black Panther has a podcast. Your favorite business people have a podcast. And it's a great way to build a platform, not only for yourself, but for other people if you want to interview your favorites. If you love specific type of fantasy books, nobody's speaking to Black authors in fantasy. It'd be easy to be able to have conversations with authors about their books. If you're into skincare, speak to skincare people who are in the industry and build a tribe around there. There's so many possibilities with an audio file, with a microphone, a headset, and your computer, or just your phone. You can be anywhere and record and upload, but you want to make sure that you put together a quality show. There's also a lot of people doing podcasts, and it is it's really interesting out here. It's really interesting. But what that means is that if you put together a quality show, it's going to rise to the top pretty quickly. And I can honestly say that I'm very proud of the show that I put out. And every day I'm improving and getting better and building my confidence in going after the type of show that I want to create. Because eventually I would like to belong to a larger podcast group. My dream is to be a part of. I'm not going to put it out there. I'm going to keep it to myself. I'm going to keep that one to myself. I like to keep stuff to myself. Keep it between me and God. But 5 reasons to start your own podcast is: 1, amplify your voice; 2, build a community; 3, personal growth; 4, representation; and 5, empowerment. Now let's go through all of that. What does that mean? Amplify your voice. Number 1 is amplifying your voice, your position, your point of view, your perspective in any situation, whether you're a business person, a creative. If you review movies, your perspective is very important. How you see the world is how you amplify your voice. And oftentimes, if you're a business person or you're a speaker, you want to, you're waiting to get on somebody's stage to become a speaker. The beauty of a podcast is you build your own stage, you build your own platform, and then people can come to you, or it puts your voice out in the world and elevates it so that the people that have stages will hear you, see you, and learn your point of view. And it's a very easy way to prepare for becoming a speaker, because you get used to hearing the sound of your voice. You get to correct some things when you're speaking, and you get clear about what you believe in and what is important to you. And all of those things happen as you're building out your podcast and as you are strengthening your voice, as you amplify it. And then you get to speak to your peers in the industry. When you look at people like Lewis Howes and Jay Shetty, and what builds up their podcast is the people that they have on it. So they got a computer, a video camera, a microphone, and invited people to sit down and have conversations. And that has blown their businesses up to huge spaces. And they use video. But what I love about audio is that, especially for women, we like to feel safe and we like to have private, intimate experiences. So there's a level of vulnerability that happens in the audio space, right? So if I'm interviewing somebody and we're just voice to voice, it's very different than when you're on video because we as women get very self conscious. And when you eliminate that ability of self consciousness, then you can get to the real conversations. And if you listen to my interviews, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's so many people that have said, oh my goodness, I've never told anybody this before, because I'm able to create a safe space where we can have a conversation and build up trust. And then my audience feels trust that I'm going to bring them something spectacular. Even if they're not interested in the subject, they're going to get something out of it because that's how I design the podcast. And we all have the opportunity to design our podcast how we choose. And the other, number two, is building community. Your listeners become your community, the people that you interview or that you have conversations with, the topics that you speak about, you build community around that. Let's say that you are a knitter. You could start a podcast about knitting and then build a community of knitters around the globe. And you just never know who's listening, who's tuning in. And you can tell that by the analytics that you get from the podcast companies that you belong to. You get to see that there are people listening from all over the world. And so you build community of like-minded people or people that have the same interests as you. If you're a travel person, it's a beautiful way to archive your travels. If you're a person who loves to talk about um, anything, absolutely anything. If you're a person that likes to talk about, I listened today a podcasting about building. A construction guy has a podcast, and so he talks to other builders around the country, and then it becomes a conversation about that community of people who build homes and commercial buildings and things like that. It could be you could be a painter and talk about different painting ideas. There's so many opportunities where you can build community around your ideas. We saw the explosion of podcasts over the last few, since the beginning of the year, when Club Shay Shay interviewed Cat Williams. That's a podcast. It's not a television show. It's a podcast, and there's a video component and an audio component. And then over this whole Twitter beef, this hip hop beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, podcasters blew up because they were having conversations about it. So people are on social media talking about it, and then people are having podcasts having conversations about it. And it's a hot topic. And if you choose to talk about hot topics, when you see something going on, you pull out your mic, you pull out your headphone, and you start having that conversation. And then it helps to reach out to the people who are interested in what you're interested in. You can be a political commentator. All the things that you think you have to be on video to do, you can do with audio. And the beauty of building community is that people talk about you when you're not even in the room. The third thing is professional growth. There's a thing that if you're a coach or a business person, an entrepreneur, you want to be able to develop your craft, whatever it is. And the more that you talk about it, and the thing about if you're talking about your craft, you have to have something to talk about on your podcast. So you're going to go out and you're going to study whatever that subject is so that you can bring it to your audience. And so that just makes you more proficient in whatever you're doing, and it helps develop you, and it helps to build your confidence as well. Because there was a time that I would have never sat on YouTube and had a conversation about anything. Last year, 6 months ago, I would never be on YouTube talking about anything. But the more that I speak on my podcast, the more that I'm hearing my own voice, and the more that I'm getting feedback that, that I'm doing a good job, the more comfortable I feel on the microphone. The next step is video. So it's a progressive thing for me. Never had an intention to do video. I don't know if I'll ever do video interviews. That's a whole nother subject. But coming on here and talking to you about my process, behind the scenes stories about the podcast. I love coming over here and talking about it now, but I promise you, 6 months ago, I would not have done video. There are people who love that space, but I'm a literally, they call it a late adapter to this space. So for my own personal growth, podcasting has really, really been profound for me. Because you get into all of your insecurity. I get into all my insecurities. I'm like, oh my God, who's going to look at me? I'm too big or I'm too brown. My hair is, I don't have 17-inch Malaysian hair and I'm not wearing, contoured makeup. I'm just wearing a little lipstick and some eyeshadow. So all of those insecurities come up. But then I realize that there are people like me who want to hear from me, who I want to hear from them. So there's a tribe for everything. And once you get into this world, you understand how vital your voice is and how much you can build your confidence by just putting yourself out there, stretching yourself and building yourself up. And it's a beautiful thing. And then representation. Brown girls. There's not enough brown girls in the podcasting world. You see the same people over and over again, but are there a plethora of brown girls? No, there's not. It's a very small group of people when you're talking about the overall scope of people in podcasting. And it's very much dominated, like everything else, by white men. But our voices are powerful and they're important. And typically in the realm of media, you hear the same people over and over again. But the beauty of podcasting is you get to build your own stage and put yourself out there. And you get to represent the people that are your tribe or your community. And you get to amplify your voice and your perspective with your microphone and your headset, right? And so it's a beautiful way to put yourself out there um, and represent the people that are like you. No matter what community that you're in, there's people who are waiting to hear your voice, because what it does, spiritually and metaphysically and emotionally, is it creates a portal for other people to walk through that door. So you might be the first to do it, but once you open that door, there are other people that will come behind you. And so I knew for myself it was important to say, okay, get over yourself, get over your insecurities, and just put yourself out there, because somebody's waiting to hear your voice. And that's what I was told by my peers and people who said, just go for it. And so I'm here and I'm representing the representation of the representers. And the other piece of it, especially for women, is empowerment. There's nothing more powerful for a woman than to use our voice. There's nothing more powerful than the ability to share our perspective with people, because we live in a world where other people tell Black women how we are, what is important to us, what we feel, what we expect, all the things. People constantly telling us who we are. And the best way to let people know who you are is to let people know who you are. And so that's an empowering place to come from, is to put your voice into the world and your perspective. We often allow other people to speak up for us, but it's important that we say, no, that's not how I feel. And it reminds me of going through this whole hip hop beef piece that everybody went through over the weekend that exploded. Was there so many people trying to define what Blackness is, and so many people who are not Black telling people what Blackness is. And the louder we got, the more people got quiet, especially when you're talking about the Black American experience. There were so many people that there's been a lot of things on social media talking about Black people don't have culture, Black people don't have identity, Black Americans are this, or Black Americans are not that. But what people discovered over the weekend is we do have a clear identity. We have a clear voice. It's just up to us to use it and to put ourselves out there. And that's an empowering place to do, to say, this is who I am. You may not understand it. I don't care. but this is who I am. So it's important for us to empower ourselves, to use our voices, to build community, to grow personally and professionally, and to represent ourselves in our best possible light, our truest light. And that's where podcasting comes in. It is an avenue for us to do it. Social media is one thing, but social media is a great highlight reel of what's going on in your life, and funny memes and conversation starters. But when it comes to podcasting, you can sit down and have a full conversation. You can fully express your thoughts and your views. You can interview your peers. You can learn from people. You can share what you learn with people. There's so many different aspects. If you're creative, you can use your art and express it and talk to people about, let's say you're a painter and you never have the opportunity to have an exhibit. But a podcast is a great way to have an exhibit, because how about you start having conversations with curators and art writers, and putting your name out there as an artist, and telling your audience about your painting, what's the inspiration behind it, all of those type of things. So there's so many different things that you can do with your art, with your creativity, with your business acumen. I probably shouldn't tell this story. Well, I'm just going to say this whole affirmative action piece is impacting us in ways that most people don't know about. So I have been on this mission. I know everybody's doing this soft life thing, but I'm on a mission to help women, marginalized women, to put their voices out in the world, which is why I created Is This Mic On workshop. And it's a way for people to put out a game plan, move past your fears of doing it, and really put yourself out there in a whole new way that stretches you, because they are on a mission to silence us, especially as Black women. They're on a mission to put us back into a lifestyle that we're not going back to. And it's up to us to put our voices out there and let people know how we feel, let people know who we are, and let people know what we stand for. And social media, you're under the control of other people's platforms. But with a podcast, you're building your own platform. You're building your own community, and you're representing yourself, your ideals, and your perspectives through your own voice. And that's why podcasting is so powerful. And there's something special about audio that goes a bit deeper um, within the psyche than video. Because I'll tell you what, here's an example of that, a perfect example that is one of your favorite songs. Let's say it's Thriller by Michael Jackson, right? As soon as you hear that first beat, you already assume the position, right? It's as soon as you hear the first gong and beat it, you assume the position, because audio gets inside of your memory. Sound is so, you might not remember a movie that you saw, but you remember a line that somebody said. You know, how often do you go around and repeat favorite lines from a movie, right? How many times do you you know, somebody will say you'll have a joke, an inside joke with your friend group, right? And as soon as somebody says a line from a movie that they heard, everybody falls out laughing. Or if there's a tense moment, somebody will break out in a song lyric. What is the new one? BBL Drizzy. Is that what it is? BBL, the new song. Everybody's singing it. Everybody's singing it. There's no video for it. There's no anything for it, but everybody's singing it and will remember it forever. And that's the power of audio. Video is the same way, but you might not remember specifically a movie scene, but you remember a line from a movie. And you can go back to a Spike Lee movie or a Ava DuVernay television show, something. You know, Oprah says something and you remember for the rest of your life. The way that she says her name when she gets excited and going to share, You will always and forever remember that. You might not remember seeing her do it, but you remember. So sound gets inside of our body. We remember it. It's powerful. You can study sound. Vibrations and frequencies are very powerful in our body. That's why they have sound meditations. That's why if you're meditating, you have a mantra that you say. But there's something special about the vibration of audio that is soothing and it's gentle and it can be aggressive. It can help us heal. So sound is powerful. And that's why when people ask me, do you want to do a video podcast? I really don't. I really love the space of audio. I know that video grows faster, but it also burns out quicker. Because people will go watch something else. They go watch the hottest thing. But people who listen to audio tend to stick around a lot longer because there's something that when you can hear somebody's voice, you hear the authenticity in a person's voice, the tone is magical, and all of the things. But anyway, I'm getting really deep into this because I absolutely love podcasting. And not that I love podcasting specifically, I love being able to have a platform that I could share and bring on people who I think are magnificent that are not often heard. People are writing books, people are putting out movies, and nobody's talking to them, which is why I created this platform so that I can have those conversations with people. But the 5 reasons to have a podcast or to amplify your voice. Oh, if you're watching this, please like and subscribe to the video. I'm so new to this. I don't know all the things to say, but please like, subscribe, and then turn on your notifications so that you know when I'm going live. I plan to go live at least 3 or 4 times a week now, building up this page, building up this conversation with you, because empowering people is my jam. And I want to make sure that you have the information so that you can be your best self and live your best life. And I want to share behind the scenes about my podcast, how I'm building it, how I'm growing it, as well as encourage you to listen to the interviews of these dynamic women, the lives that they have lived so they can inspire you, because they definitely inspire me. Some of the people I'm like, oh, I got to get my stuff together. But anyway, back to the list. The 5 reasons to have a podcast is to amplify your voice, build community, professional growth, representation, and empowerment. And I think those, although there are several reasons, those are very great reasons to think about one day starting your podcast. And, reach out if you have any questions. Please put them in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to the Black Women Amplified podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. And also subscribe to this page, Black Women Amplified. And here's the thing. We are beautiful and magnificent. And the world may not deserve us, but we deserve to be heard. And I hope that you think about what you have to say, your perspective, and check us out. I will talk to you soon, sending you love and light, and I hope that you have a magnificent evening. Take care. Hi, Gay. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, I can see comments. I'm so new to this stuff. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm glad that thank you. I appreciate it. I listen, this new YouTube thing is new, but I'm going to conquer it like I do everything else in my life, and I'm happy to be here. My cousin told me to start this during 2020. I was like, I'm not going on YouTube. Why would I do that? Thank you, Gay. I appreciate you being here as well. But listen, I'm here. I'm representing for the brown girls. Anyway, sending you all love and light, and I will talk to you soon. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. And that's it. And really think about starting your own podcast and your own platform. The world deserves to hear your voice. Have an amazing day.